Ignorance is bliss. Many have said this statement, and yet the masses will still fall for it. From time to time, we as humans can be so caught up in our love that it can blind us from seeing the faults in the problem at hand, resulting in the line between love and infatuation becoming hard to discern. We then become ignorant and choose to not confront the problem that is obviously bothering us. Why then? Simple. Because it feels good for us to be caught up in the excitement. We like what we are feeling from this source of excitement and want to keep that hype alive. I want to hammer in the fact that it is not wrong to passionately love a hobby or piece of media, but it is wrong when that love causes us to become blinded from its flaws, which can make us ignorant to the hate that someone might need to hear. Now, a lot of folks will tell you that hate is never a feeling one should let blossom, with, the negative consequences that can soon follow it. But I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you, we don't care. Jerry.
In all seriousness, I don't mean hate in the literal sense. It's just that I'm using it as a broad term. Regardless, I've noticed that not everyone, but there are plenty of folks out there that will not know the difference between love and hate for something. Folks will become incredibly defensive by a single disagreement pertaining to the subject being discussed. This in turn makes their emotions to not let them see the point trying to be made, I guess. As the saying goes, you are your own worst critic. At face value, this phrase sounds abrasive, I guess. Nevertheless, the thought process regarding this phrase, or how I've always seen it, is that when we're upset over what our brains will deem as a flaw towards, let's say, a hobby, the natural response is to be critical over said hobby. Because whether you never realized it, you will have some sort of care in your body, mind, heart, or soul. But you will care for said hobby, solely due to the fact that you devoted your own time plus effort into said hobby. This makes you criticize something simply because you love it, resulting in yourself sounding like you hate said hobby, but in reality, you love it with all your heart. Now I've yapped long enough. I believe it's time to start the main event. The movie franchise that debatably started my love for Hong Kong kung fu flicks. Now, I had always enjoyed kung fu flicks prior to watching the first Ip Man movie back in 2008, 2010. Hold on!
You need to leave!
I know, I sound old. But to be honest, it was only 4 movies that I watched back then, that being New Police Story, Thunderbolt, Rush Hour 3, and The Forbidden Kingdom. Seems to be a pattern going on here. No, but I was strictly a Jackie Chan fan as a young lad, and only watched his movies, even The Spy Next Door. I didn't even pay for my ticket then, and I still want the freaking money back. Nevertheless, the first Ip Man movie absolutely blew me away, and I remember being captivated by the levels of coolness that happened on screen. Sorry. From each attack sounding like the opponent got diagnosed with blunt force trauma across their entire body, to understanding that sometimes the most effective option is the simplest. which is a lesson I've been able to utilize throughout my entire life. So instead of only enjoying movies from one kind of kung fu actor, I now enjoy two kinds of kung fu actors. Yeah, not gonna lie, I only really got into kung fu flicks like 4 or 5 years ago as of writing this, when I decided to watch either, I think it was Drunken Master 1 or the original Police Story. Both all-time greats from Jackie Chan, by the way. And after that, I got really into Hong Kong kung fu and martial arts flicks in general over the years. But today, I wanted to talk about Ip Man, and especially Ip Man 4, my least favorite of the franchise. And that includes Master Z. And I liked Master Z way more than 4. Now, if you watched any Ip Man film, you know that you are going to have a wonderful final fight scene that would debatably not even be the greatest action set piece of the film. Simply because the films are just that high of quality with their action, like Ip versus General Miura in the first movie and Ip versus the Twister in the second one. I'm just now remembering while writing this that his name wasn't Ip, and I will be referring to him by his actual name, Man, from now on. Even decades later, you'll be telling your grandkids the story of the fights from these films, like you yourself were in the crowd, witnessing the events that unfolded, when it seemed as if all hope was lost and the people were in disarray, to feeling that surge of ecstasy flowing through your cells when Man would find the right decisions to overcome the obstacles placed in front of him by his oppressors. I mean, I know I was 1000% in that crowd in the final fight of Ip Man 1. Lil me was almost getting trampled by the crowd when Man got shot by the end of the first movie. Sorry. And yet, with how strong a franchise I'm making this film series out to be, I don't remember feeling any sort of real impact on me throughout my entire viewing process of the fourth movie. It felt like I was watching this solely because I was obligated to see how things played out, and not a genuine passion to view a new entry into a beloved franchise of mine. Now, granted, I did watch this movie years after it came out, as I had seen the franchise was already slowing down in quality since the third movie, which I thought had a satisfying ending for the series, so I became distant with the series, choosing to live in my own headcanon of the story, until I decided to finally view the movie for myself so I can come to my own conclusion. And what was that conclusion? They keep rehashing the same stupid plot point that's been done to death. Sorry. What I mean by this is that, for those who do not know, ever since the first movie, there's been a general kind of plot point that plays into every Ip Man movie. That being outsiders, xenophobia, racism, etc., whatever the hell you want to call it. In the first one, it was the Japanese during World War II, specifically being General Miura, who I mentioned earlier as he's like the final boss archetype for the movie. In the second movie, this time around, it was the British and their rule over Hong Kong at the time, but specifically, the final boss was a boxer, Taylor the Twister Milos. I never knew that's what his name was. And similarly, to Man's win against General Miura, it once again showed triumph over another outsider, proving that these oppressed people who we, the audience, have seen had their lives, homes, and spirits stripped away of them aren't actually weak after all. They're plenty capable of proving their worth, and that's what's beautiful about the end of the second movie. It shows that despite it seeming that there was always going to be a bigger fish in the sea waiting to gobble them up, they proved once again that they are not incapable of rebelling or acting when the moment is right, even if that means making a decision that could cost their lives or the lives around them. But in the end, a light would shine on the new beginnings of a country regaining their freedom, and for new lives that were able to be born into a country with brighter futures than previously shown. They might have felt scared or felt some kind of fear, but they stood brave in the face of fears unbeknownst to them.
我在北京。
老天保佑，金山银山全部有。
Alright, I'm not gonna lie. After this is where the problems begin. In the third movie, not only do they just get rid of the entire side cast from the previous two movies, but they also have freaking Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson is just some random freaking guy. I don't know. I thought he was a gang leader that this guy works for, but it turns out he's a corrupt American property developer and proficient boxer with several connections to the local triads in Hong Kong. This is the first I'm hearing of this. Nevertheless, this movie introduces Mike, aka Frank, in a way that, yes, there is build-up and foreshadowing in the general story writing sense, but dude, let's be for real for a second. They could have taken any famous fighter, hell, any actor to play this boxer, and the story would have played out the exact same way. Mike Tyson is solely here because of the fact that despite this movie taking place in 1959 when neither of these individuals were born, the producers thought to themselves, yo, wouldn't it be dope as balls to earn fat stacks of cash by having our marketing be that the Mike Tyson fights freaking Donnie Yen? This was a minor problem of mine at first because I, one, saw the cash grab marketing that they were going for because, dude, it seemed obvious. And two, I fell for that cash grab marketing. I was young, sue me, I know. I was able to excuse that at the time, added it onto the facts that I assumed that with Donnie Yen's age not getting any younger, it would play a part in the creatives behind the scenes wanting to finish the series. Plenty of Ip Man movies being made by other people since the first movie. Ip Man 3 having an absence of truly generational fight scenes compared to the previous movies. An introduction to a new Wing Chun user who was different enough to stand on his own, and with how he fought, he seemed worthy enough to carry on the legacy of these movies. And in the final arc of the movie, it's revealed that Ip Man's wife has cancer, so Man abandons Kung Fu so he can spend the short amount of time he had left with his dying wife. But when he's challenged for the final time, with this time being a clash of styles, that being Wing Chun versus Wing Chun, of course, Man would come out on top. And so, with the story ending with the death of his wife and Ip Man seemingly retiring, this seemed like a bittersweet end for Ip Man's story. And that wasn't until whispers were heard. Whispers that spoke of a so-called last movie. Allegedly.
For the love of God! For the love of God!
Now this fourth movie. This is where the gripes I've had with the series truly blossomed, as I didn't become critical of the series until this movie, so I'm gonna try to mainly focus on the fight scenes because, well, that's what you come for in these kung fu action flicks. It's where the visual storytelling lives off of. And man, no Ip, I was so utterly disappointed by every single one of the fight scenes in this movie. Not a single one, in my opinion, is memorable. Bruce versus the Karate Guy fight.
Ass.
Ip Man versus the Bullies.
Ass.
Mr. Wan versus Ip Man.
Ass.
Colin Frater versus Hartman.
Ass.
Colin Frater versus Ip Man.
Ass.
Mr. Wan versus Sergeant Geddes. Ip Man versus Sergeant Geddes. A reason I have always favored Eastern martial arts movies is because I do agree with the sentiment that Western movies can be pretty poor when it comes to its hand-to-hand or combat scenes in general lately. You know, with all the cuts or dark lighting to mask the actor's incapability to perform the stunts. I always think of the Hobbs versus Dom fight in Fast 5 because, man, that poo was difficult to watch. There are some wonderful exceptions that I will sing my praises to the end of days, like the John Wick series or the Batman 2022. But when I watched Ip Man 4, it felt like they had sterilized the Ip Man movies with, I don't know if it was just me, but the overabundance on wire work or cuts in between shots bothered me. If you look at this scene from Ip Man 4 versus Ip Man 1, somewhat similar throws on the opponent are happening, but in the first movie, you can see that they still show that the person's weight plus momentum is being accounted for and not neglected, resulting in a shot where you, as the viewer, still feel a sign of reality, despite it obviously being over the top. Whereas in the fourth movie, it looks like he's just holding on to the guy and letting the wires do most of, if not all of the work. And the same guy is landing with no consequences to his momentum whatsoever. I do understand that the style of Tai Chi redirects the opponent's energy in different ways, and the guy was coming in hot with a Superman punch. However, I still think it looks silly. I'll show you a different example of what I think shows over-the-top momentum, but you're still able to feel the weight of the momentum being thrown around, while the over-the-top moves being performed still fits with the character's fighting style. The antithesis of this exact statement is literally Sergeant Geddes from the fourth movie. The guy is doing all sorts of moves that aren't even pertaining or related to karate whatsoever, to my knowledge. Now, of course, fighters today will take any type of techniques from other styles and incorporate it into their own. But, I gotta stress that the fourth movie ain't set in today's day. This way of thinking was pioneered in the West by Bruce Lee, and if you remember, this movie is before this way of thinking became the norm. Plus, the dude Geddes himself says, and I quote, there was not a doubt in my mind that karate is the best form of hand-to-hand combat, bar none.
There is not a doubt in my mind that karate is the best form of hand-to-hand combat, bar none.
So how the fuck this guy is pulling off taekwondo and northern-style kung fu-looking moves is beyond me, man. Now, don't get me wrong. Number 4 is not the only one to be guilty of these sins, as every single movie has its own level of bullshit. I'm looking at you, table fight scene from number 2. Hell, even the first few fights Ip Man has in the series is guilty of the exact sins I'm currently accusing number 4 of. at the very least, I'll give those 3 movies this. When movies 1 through 3 would follow the rule of cool, it made sure to be cool with its story being told. Whereas number 4 feels like the movie is repeatedly trying to ask you, hey, isn't this cool? A great example of this is the first real fight scene in the 4th movie, between Bruce Lee and some racist karate guys. So Bruce goes out to the street to fight the racist guys, and wipes the floor with them with 1 attack for each of them. Then, out of nowhere, a random guy who was not shown to be a part of the original group of racist karate guys just emerges from a nearby alley in full karate garb, shatters a light bulb with a kick, and challenges Bruce to a one-on-one. And, oh boy. This fight just sucks, I'm not gonna lie. No disrespect to either actor on their work, because I think they both did perfectly well for their work. Hell, even Danny Chan, the guy who played Bruce, does a good job to copy the real Bruce's on-screen mannerisms. But this fight is another case of cash grab marketing. It's like, oh, we have a Bruce Lee fight in this movie, please watch this. That's what it feels like seeing this fight, and the fact that they have this fight at the very beginning of the movie and you never see Bruce again in this movie until near the ending for like 3 minutes, and that's being generous. It just reinforces my statement of this being more cash grab marketing. But back to the actual fight. So the 2 of them go back and forth, with it basically being a one-sided fight until the karate guy grabs his oh-so-convenient nunchucks from his belt, then instantly gets the snatch for him. And once again, they do another, hey, isn't this cool? Type of moment, where the actor playing Bruce performs the famous nunchuck demonstration scene from, that it honestly could be from either Enter the Dragon or Way of the Dragon, but I think it's probably this scene from The Way of the Dragon. So, Bruce embarrasses the guy, and after he's beaten the dude So, Bruce embarrasses this poor guy, and after he's beaten, the guy gives him a thumbs up. And I remember the first time I watched this, plus after I rewatched it a couple of days ago as of writing this, I burst out laughing in hysteria. Of how ridiculous the whole entire scene was. Not only that, but on both viewing experiences, I remember being mentally checked out of the movie after this part, because I couldn't stop thinking, this is how the whole movie is going to be, isn't it? Yep, I was right. The entire movie is just like that. An okay action movie with a thin-ass racism plot thrown into the mix, which is a perfect segue into the next part.
Oh. Fuck all that! Nah, ain't no fuck all that.
So skipping past an entire heated debate between Man and the Chinese Benevolent Association, or CBA for short, which resulted in this happening. Because of the stigma the Chinese had against non-Chinese folk learning Kung Fu, and Man who taught Bruce Lee, who pioneered bringing Kung Fu to the world, we get to the first real part of action that Man is involved in, where he saves the daughter of the CBA's leader from extreme levels of bullying from some American kids. And it lasts for, I kid you not even a single minute. To which, yeah, there would be serious problems in the narrative if Man just started beating on some little kids in broad daylight on school property, but that's neither here nor there. And without getting into the convenience that is, Man just so happens to be applying at the same school for his son that the daughter of the CBA also just so happens to attend. Back to the topic. So you might wonder, why was the CBA's daughter being bullied? Well, to summarize, little white girl here is jealous that the daughter, who is named Yona, is doing better at cheerleading than her. So, of course, this calls for bullying and calling on some random jocks to beat the snot out of her, because What other solution is there in 1964 America? Yona decides to fight back and tries to run away, but is eventually caught and pinned up against a tennis gate, and the bully forcibly cuts her hair off, to which Yona retaliates, and the scissors fly back and cuts the bully across the face. One of the jocks thinks that is completely unacceptable, so he grabs the tennis gate door and swings with all his might to mollywop Yona. But in comes the man himself, who tanks that door, which slams on his entire left forearm. And then we get that stupid ass less than a minute beating he gave that I mentioned earlier. Remember how I said earlier that the movies tend to have a racism outsider plot device that gets thrown around in every movie? Yeah, if it wasn't obvious, this movie is the definition of that statement I said earlier. Okay. By this point, we are 38 minutes into a 1 hour and 45 minute movie, and there is still no fight scene from the man himself. However, I will play a bit of devil's advocate because Ip Man should be about 71 and dying of cancer by the time of this movie. Back to the subject. To put things into perspective, by this point in the second movie, we would have already seen the fish market fight and would be starting the tabletop fight between Man and all the Kung Fu masters. Mind you, all 4 of these movies are around the same length of around 1 hour to 40-ish minutes. I do see that the film is going for a slow burn type of feel with its fights by choosing to keep Man on the back burner until the moment is right for him to answer the call to action. And that's perfectly fine within the context of the film. So you would assume that the fights they do show off with Man will be stellar, right? Right? Right?
I'm gonna kill myself!
Calm down.
Okay, so Man chaperones Yona back home safely, to which he once again encounters the head of the CBA named Mr. Wan. The two of them fight, to which I will say that it is interesting to see how Tai Chi could fight in a Hong Kong movie, as I had always respected the style for what it can provide for health reasons or actual combat reasons, but I've never seen it in action. And what did I think of my first viewing of Tai Chi in action? It was alright. The Tai Chi in the movie was fine when rewatching it in retrospect, but at the time I was put off by how odd they were moving in the fight and wondered why Man didn't just hit him with this shit. But nowadays I can see it for what it can be worth. Doesn't mean this is a generational fight scene though. When we finally see the Man in action and it's for a fight that's honestly just another fight scene, it's disappointing. And if a fight scene in the Ip Man series makes one feel that way, then they have severely failed to hit the mark. Don't get me wrong, this is me saying this in the present day, but I remember having this exact same sentiment when I first watched the movie. It was just another fight scene. I forgot to mention that while this is all happening, the racism plot is still brewing in the background as the white girl bully comes home crying, to which her mother hears her daughter crying, then becomes curious. The daughter says that she was attacked by a Chinese girl. Bullshit, we know that. And the mother calls her husband home, who just so happens to be a police officer working with immigration. At least, this will be the last time we see of that bitch daughter.
Good riddance.
Okay. So, on to the next fight, with some more racist, plus with the addition of, you'll never believe it, more mid-fighting. This racist karate master starts beating on the kung fu masters of Chinatown, who all for some reason look like bumbling idiots and not masters of their craft, which the film tries to present them as beforehand. But besides one competent master who almost gets her shit absolutely rearranged until Once again, the man steps onto the field. And proceeds to win the completely one-sided fight with the utmost mid-ending to a fight in any action film I have ever seen, in addition to the audacity of playing the final strike 3 different times like it was an astonishing move by man himself.
Hey y'all, come look at this.
And the dude gets hospitalized somehow from this. Man looked like he was moving to the rhythm of a script and not flowing naturally to a fight. So you can't expect me to believe the bullshit that is him being hospitalized from this. So with this, we finally get to the final fight scene with Man and it's against, take a guess, do you think it's another kung fu practitioner? The little girl bully? Or is it another racist? Stop, why are you even thinking? Of course it's another freaking racist. So the karate racist that Man just got done beating up was actually the sensei to the soldiers in the US Army, and the sergeant named Geddes, who I mentioned earlier, is not happy that his top dog was hospitalized by them weak friggin' punches. So he goes out and starts terrorizing the CBA and their kung fu masters. Until he challenges Mr. Wan, the Tai Chi guy himself. Mr. Wan loses. No, of course, resulting in the last hope for the Chinese people. The myth, the legend, the man. Racist asshole. Look around you. We are the culture. Your supremacy is pure hatred and bigotry. This is Master Yip Man. He defeated Collins last night. He's here to kick your ass. Man goes against Sergeant Geddes in front of his entire platoon, and Man actually starts getting his shit kicked in until, like every Ip Man fight, he locks in and finishes the fight swiftly. You see how I started skimming through the last 2 fights that Man is a part of? That's simply because these are, like I said earlier, just another fight scene. Not to mention the fact that every fight Man is a part of is detrimentally short and doesn't provide the excitement one would feel from viewing these movies. I could just start criticizing the ever-living hell out of the movies, but honestly, I'm tired of giving this movie any more time of day than it deserves. At least, it gave us this hard-ass poster though. So, Ip Man, the movie franchise that helped shape a decent amount of my current life, fell from grace hard. But the writing on the wall was there ever since they decided to make a third movie. Hell, did you know Donnie Yen didn't even want to do any more movies after the second one? He stated this, to which, yeah, it makes sense, like at that point, why not make it a trilogy and give something to the fans? But I think we all know damn well that check was walrus levels of fat for him to say no. I have to reiterate that I am a fan of the series and not just a hater of these movies, but I think we as people need to understand that when a franchise that fans will hold near and dear in their heart and memories, if it feeds their fans so well, and when they finally experience an entry that wasn't near the same level of quality as the previous entries, of course the fans will be upset over it. It's not hating just to simply hate. Folks have a right to be upset over bad decisions to a franchise they love. Like for example, execs making decisions in the writing that have nothing to do with the original spirit of the series, or that the main thing that attracts a fan to the franchise, it just isn't up to snuff anymore. This will lead folks to voicing their opinions on the choices being made for the franchise, and that is actually good. Keep voicing your opinions, because it is good for everyone to not have the same hive mind takes. Plus, it will hopefully force the execs to hear the complaints being thrown around and have to stop and critically think on the choices they are choosing to make with said franchise. But please, for the love of God, don't be annoying about it. Whining on social media about the littlest of things, like just because you don't like the shade of color a character's shirt, so you go on a tantrum and spam posting on all the franchise's social media accounts. And with my closing remarks, if live action Sonic can change looks, then anything is possible.